Good evening and welcome to 7:30 WA. I'm Andrew O'Connor. If you get hurt on the job, you'd expect to be covered by some form of workers' compensation. But not, it seems, if you're a West Australian police officer. In Western Australia, police who are injured and judged unfit to serve are given just 1 month's salary, their holiday pay, and then they're cut loose. Now a group of medically retired WA officers say it's time they were compensated for the injuries they sustained while serving in the line of duty. Lucy Martin reports.
It's a great job. It's a hugely satisfying job, but one that comes with a cost.
Trevor Dolan loved everything about being a police officer, but the job nearly destroyed him.
We've had nightmares and flashbacks and triggers from my senses even. I mean, you might go to a barbecue, for instance, and it triggers just the smell can trigger an incident in your mind that you've dealt with.
For years, Trevor bottled his feelings while attending horrific crime scenes.
You didn't want to let the guys down. It was a very team-oriented job, and you also didn't want to be seen as a weak link. So you went into work mode and you dealt with the trauma or the incident, whatever it involved.
But years of repressing his emotions eventually caught up with Trevor, and he developed a crippling case of post-traumatic stress disorder.
I had no idea what was wrong with me.
As a fresh-faced 24-year-old, Heather Wellstead blazed a path for female police officers. She attended dozens of suicides, murders, sexual assaults and fatal accidents during her time as a detective.
We just sort of got on with the job. It wasn't until I moved down to Perth, went through the detective training and then went into the specialist areas, I started to notice that my issues of not coping seemed to be more pronounced.
Her job was to stay calm while others broke down, but the relentless pressure started to take a toll.
I would have tremors when attending traumatic scenes, heart palpitations, I'd get very red in the face, I'd shake, just feeling sick. There's rarely a break from it. It was rarely that you felt that you were off duty.
She sought help from her superiors, but they told her it was nothing to worry about, that all detectives got like that in the end. By the time she was diagnosed, Heather had been suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder for at least 15 years.
One of the things that makes me so angry is that at no time as a recruit through my training at the academy, at any stage in any investigation, training or education since then, have I ever been told anything about post-traumatic stress syndrome or the fact that I might get it. So for me to be told that I had it was quite a shock. They failed on so many levels. This isn't an issue that just happened overnight. This has been going on for over 20 years.
At 53 years old, Heather was judged unfit to serve and medically retired after almost 30 years in the force.
You're fighting their opinion all the way, and at the end of the day all they really wanted was to free up my position so they could replace me, which is understandable because they are running short on the front line.
Trevor was medically retired in September, a phone call from WA Police putting an abrupt end to a 25-year career. Like Heather, he was offered little support.
All of a sudden you're no longer a police officer, you're a civilian. But you're a civilian who's not appreciated for what you've done in the past.
Heather Wellstead and Trevor Dolan developed post-traumatic stress disorder as a direct result of their work. But all they were entitled to when they left the force was holiday pay and 1 month's wages. That's because Western Australia is the only state that doesn't have a workers' compensation scheme for medically retired police officers. Once an officer is judged unfit for frontline service, there are no other options. Since 2001, more than 200 have been medically retired on psychological grounds.
People think it's like the movies. We drive around eating junk food, pulling people over. It couldn't be further from the truth. As detectives, we shoulder the responsibility of major investigations and court trials. It's a job that moulds you. A great team, great opportunity. Step forward, you'll never look back.
Understandably, the prospect of getting hurt at work isn't mentioned in the recruitment campaign.
Live a life less ordinary. Join the WA Police today.
It looks very nice on the TV to see all these glossy police programs and all the adverts. The reality is very different to what you actually do.
Former Police Sergeant Dave Bentley started his career on the same day as the Police Commissioner Carl O'Callaghan.
I knew that I'd be beaten up, I'd be spat on, I'd be involved in crashes, there'd be very unpalatable things that I'd deal with. But nobody ever suggested that I would lose my mind, that I would suffer a nervous breakdown.
He saw things too horrific to describe during his time as a crash investigator. He too was medically retired in 2009. He wants a compensation scheme to be introduced as a matter of priority, and he has a powerful ally.
If you happen to have a high profile and the media are interested in your particular case, it's likely that government will pay some sort of compensation. But if you don't get anything at all, and I think we have to resolve that.
The Police Commissioner, Carl O'Callaghan, also believes a compensation scheme is needed.
We're also very keen in being able to connect police officers who can no longer work in the front line with other types of jobs and other types of employment, so they can constructively continue to work, but not necessarily in policing.
But it would involve a trade-off, one the police union seems unwilling to accept.
If we're going to go for workers' compensation, it would require the union to agree that police officers generally are no longer entitled to 168 days sick leave a year, and that's been a sticking point in all of the negotiations up to now.
The union has made no secret of its desire to retain its hard-won sick leave. Despite saying off-camera it strongly supports a compensation scheme, the union declined an interview request from the ABC to tell their side of the story. While the former police officers wait for progress, this man is helping them move forward. Psychologist Doug Brewer runs an 18-week treatment program for emergency services personnel here at Hollywood Hospital.
Policing increases the vulnerability to not be able to recover, in that not only are you frequently exposed to traumatic events, but you're having to block those out in order to continue to do your duty.
He says the longer PTSD goes undetected, the more damage it can do, and he's seeing an increase in the number of police officers coming to him with the disorder.
For people who have been exposed to trauma over a long period of time, one of the symptoms that will often occur is that the emotions that they've managed to hold so in check are no longer able to be controlled that way. Now, for a person, whether male or female, in a job where being able to present yourself as in control is so important, losing control of your own emotional stability is incredibly worrying. And of course, the fear is, I'm losing the plot here.
Heather Wellstead and Trevor Dolan asked WA Police to pay for them to participate in the program while they were still serving. Both were sent the same letter from WA Police's Health and Welfare Service telling them,
"The police psychiatrist has reviewed the program, and it is her opinion that the course would offer you no significant improvement. WA Police have decided to decline to authorise the cost for your participation in the program on the grounds that it is not considered to be reasonable."
Dr Brewer saw it differently.
Was it your opinion that Heather Wellstead would benefit from the treatment program?
Yes.
Why did you conclude that about Heather?
She met the criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder. She was not able to work at the time and would have benefited from the recovery program that we run here.
Was your conclusion the same for Trevor?
Yes, it was.
Would you say then that the program would offer both Trevor and Heather significant improvement?
Yes, that's what the program's designed to do, and in their case, that's what it did do.
While WA Police doesn't seem to be promoting the treatment program to its officers, the ABC understands the Northern Territory government is planning to fly some of its own police to Perth to participate. In Trevor's case, WA Police eventually relented, paying almost $8,000 for him to take part in a shorter 3-week program.
By being allowed to go on the course gave me a sense of value again. That alone's worth, more than dollars.
Heather was also able to complete the program with her private health insurance, not police, footing the bill.
I am gobsmacked that in this day and age of accountability, a department can so systematically abuse its officers and not do the right thing and then seem to get away with it. It's got to stop.
They've both appealed to the state government for an ex gratia payment. It could be their only chance for recompense, because even if a compensation scheme was introduced, it's very unlikely to be retrospective.
There is no dignity in the way we're retired. We are just forced out the door.
Dave Bentley is calling for a moratorium on medically retiring officers until a compensation package is put together.
They espouse very clearly in their advertisements at the moment that join the police family. Families don't treat people like they've treated me. They support you. They stay by you through the hard times. They provide support. They provide guidance. They'll provide comfort. Sorry, the police do not do that.
They actually have to make this a top priority, and they have to actually get off their butts and do something about it.
Post-traumatic stress disorder pushed Trevor and his family to the edge. His wife and daughter have been his biggest supporters.
If I wake up, my wife wakes up. If I get sick, she gets sick. If I drink alcohol now too, that's another one of the side issues. I didn't really drink a lot of alcohol, but they call it self-medication.
But things are starting to look up. Yesterday afternoon, Trevor was told he'll receive an insurance payout through his superannuation fund. And he's slowly returning to the man he once was.
There's a saying, once a police officer, always a police officer. You know, you're still out there representing the community, and if you see something that's wrong, you'll try and rectify it, I suppose. The guys that are out there who are watching this program, who are in the job, it's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign that your glass is full, that you've made your contribution. Because at some day in the future, whether you recognise it or not, you are going to get an injury as well.
Tough times for some former police officers. Lucy Martin with that report.